Hi everybody, welcome to Joe's RC Corner, and today we're finally going to start the build on the SIG Colt. So, to start that out, we're going to go through some of the parts that are in the box so that we all have a good idea of how much work actually goes into building this airplane. It is a lot easier than some, mostly because the wing is already built. It's a foam wing. We are going to fiberglass with the water-based polyurethane, and then we're going to paint that. The reason for me wanting to do it that way rather than monocoat is I'm kind of leery on putting so much heat on this foam wing. Let me grab the wing and I'll show you what I mean. So this is the foam wing that it comes with, and it's a very dense, small bead foam. It's very susceptible to a lot of chemicals that can destroy it. Heat is definitely one of them. And if I put too much heat on this, it is definitely going to melt and warp this wing, and I don't want that to happen. So I've already added the filament tape on the bottom here, which is recommended by the manual for the aircraft. And I've also sprayed a water-based polyurethane, Varathane is what I'm using. It's a semi-gloss finish, but I've already sprayed the foam with that as well, which is going to give me a great starting point to sand it down a little bit more. I've already filled most of the holes and gaps and everything in the foam, and it also seals in the filament tape. So you'll barely see it once the fiberglass and the water-based polyurethane's on there. So it's really, I think that'll make a big difference on there. Okay, so let's go ahead and open the box and let's take a look at the contents inside. Okay, so now that we have everything taken out of the box, I'm going to go ahead and lay everything out so we can get a good look at what we actually have here. Now, some of these parts that were in the box didn't really come with this aircraft. I bought this on eBay, and the previous owner must have bought all the parts that they needed, including the spinner, wheels, tires, wheel collars, so that way they were ready to start building this airplane. Okay, so now that we have everything laid out on the bench, and I'm going to show you a short clip that actually has overlaid on there, that has basically an overview of everything that's in here. So these are the SIG Craftsman kits, and what that usually means is that they give you a sheet of wood with the profile or the cutout of the part on that piece of wood. So we're going to have to go through here and we're going to have to cut out all these pieces of the aircraft. So like here is looks like it's the rudder. Yeah, it looks like that's part of the rudder, but we'll find out as we get a little closer to it. The horizontal stabilizer here. And then there's some plywood doublers for the fuselage that will go on right here once we get all this cut out. And that'll strengthen up the sides of the balsa fuselage sides. We have some blocks of wood as well. So we have some balsa blocks here. We have the firewall, strips, some doublers, which all this fuselage is going to get doubled up like this with these strips of balsa. And what that does is that'll give you a place to round the corners. So that'll be really nice. Now this kit also came with 256 threaded rods with the clevises already on there. Now I'm not sure if these actually came with the kit or the previous owner of the kit that I bought it from on eBay included these. So that's to be seen. Also, he had some new Nyrod in here. It's a cabled Nyrod actually, with the solder-on tips. So that's pretty cool. May or may not have to use it on this. I may use it actually on the nose wheel steering. I'm not sure yet. We'll figure that out when we get to that point. We have a nice little box of goodies. We got the wooden dowels for the rubber bands. We got control horns, all the hardware for the nose gear, all the hardware to mount the an engine if you were going to run the a nitro engine on here, which we're actually going to go electric on it. It's just a lot cleaner. So I'm going to have to make a hatch up here in the front. Yeah, so it came with that. And amazingly, SIG also included a nice pack of foam rubber for your old style receiver where you actually needed this. We're probably not going to use it. The new 2.4 Spectrum receivers, not really as critical with it. So, but it's good to have. The gentleman that I bought this from also already has the wheel collars in there. Here's the landing gear. It's already pre-bent, ready to go. And the nose wheel. Now the kit did not have an instruction manual inside the box. That was one thing that was missing. But I went online and I actually found a group of guys on RC groups that were sharing the plan or the booklet, and I ended up finding the original booklet. So I printed that out because I don't want to have my iPad out here getting glue on it and dust and all that fun stuff. So having the a paper booklet is very, very good for that. So that way I'll be ready to go. I can start going straight from here. All right, so that's about good there. So without further ado, and get started on cutting out these parts, so we start putting this, assembling the fuselage together. So stick with me, guys, and we'll get going. Okay, guys, so the first thing we're going to be doing here is we're going to be cutting out these pieces here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the parts that I'm not going to be cutting out yet off to the side. And what we'll start off with is we're going to start cutting out the fuselage halves. All right. Now, to do that, you're going to need an X-Acto blade. You could probably use a skill saw, something of that sort. However, balsa cuts really fast. You just got to be gentle with that. I prefer to use the X-Acto blade instead, and I replaced my blade with a sharp one with a brand new one. Okay, guys, so what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and cut out the fuselage sides first. So by doing that, I'm going to need my X-Acto blade. I'm going to get just replace the blade, put a brand new, nice and sharp blade on there, so we're ready to go. And we're going to cut just on the outside of these lines first. And then we're going to go back and we're going to sand the two pieces together, face to face, so that way they're exactly the same. And I'm going to have the lines outside. So basically what I would do is I would put the face down, like so. When I piece them together, that way, when they're being cut or when they're being sanded together, I'll be able to see the line on both sides to see how close I'm getting. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and start cutting out the left side of the fuselage first, and then we'll go to the right side. So let's get going. And there's no need to rush doing this, guys. You're going to take your time, and you're going to work it nice and slow. And there you go. So that's the start of that one. Okay. Now there's a couple more pieces that are on this panel here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut those out as well, and then we'll be back when once all of this is cut out. Okay. So stay tuned. All right, so that's panel 2. It's got a lot of sanding to do on that. We've got that started. We'll go ahead and cut out the top half of the fuselage here with the wing saddle. This is where it really does pay to have that sharp blade, that really sharp blade, because if your blade's not sharp, you're just going to be crunching the wood and not really slicing it. So you want to make sure that blade is nice and sharp. And it dulls up fairly fast, so have another set of blades nearby. And to make sure all these parts fit nicely, you will be doing a lot of sanding because, like I said, these are just printed on here. And you want to make sure that everything fits nice and snug. Okay, so there's the other part. And that'll line up right over here as well. You got the A and B, and then the lines here. Okay, so we finished one side of the fuselage here, and it's all been sanded right up to the lines. So I'll bring it a little closer here for you so you can see. But yeah, so it's all nicely sanded right up to the line, and you have the full shape of the aircraft now available on here. So the notch for the horizontal stabilizer is here. Then this is where the doubler of plywood will be glued right about here, as you can see, just like so. And one of the panels, this panel here that we also sanded up nicely, will line up with the C and D and the lines. So right here you can see those two will butt up together and make a nice top half of the fuselage where the wing saddle goes. So we're going to go ahead and off camera, I'm going to go ahead and continue on the other side, get that all nicely sanded, and then we'll be ready for the next steps and the next pieces to cut out. So I'm going to go ahead and do those off camera, so we'll be ready to start gluing it all together. Alright guys, so we've gotten the two fuselage halves trimmed up and sanded and ready to be glued together with these panels here, the top half of the fuselage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get these in place. And see, they give you these really nice markers here, the CD and the AB here. So that way they line up just right. Okay? So we're going to glue those two pieces on first. So that way we have the full fuselage sides. And as you see, they're all sanded up nicely now. So to do that, I'm going to use a little bit of thick medium CA, and what I use for that is the Bob Smith Industries, not association with them or anything. It's just a decent glue that I've been using for a long time, and it works really nice. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and clear this space off. going to grab some of this wax paper. Wax paper here. Go ahead and pull that off. I'm going to lay this underneath both of these panels here. That way it doesn't stick to my bench. We don't want parts to stick to your bench. We'll do one side at a time. Make sure these two ends meet up really good. It looks like they meet up really nice. Okay. We'll take a little bit of the medium CA. We'll put a bead along the bottom here of this piece. Just like so. I'm going to line these pieces up and push them together. Make sure they're nice and flat. We'll let that cure. Okay. I'm going to hit that with a little bit of kicker here. Okay. Go ahead and just the other side as well. So now we have a full fuselage hide. Okay? Just like that. Set that one off to the side because it's now curing. We're going to have to do a little bit of sanding just to make sure this is all nice and flush, but there you go. Now we're going to do the other side. Do the same thing. Make sure, fit the piece, make sure, see how it fits. Everything lines up good. We'll go ahead and put a bead of that medium CA. Remember, a little goes a long way when it comes to CA and glue, okay? So we'll go ahead and line those pieces up before we get it permanently in place. Make sure the C and D line up good. Push down and hold them together. A little bit of kicker. Okay, and then you can peel that piece up from the wax paper, flip it over, a little kicker on the back side too. There you go, 2 fuselage sides. Let's see how they line up. We may have to do a little bit of sand in there. Yeah, a little bit of sand in here. Make sure everything lines up nicely. We're going to line them up back to back first. Okay, so now that I got these sides all nicely sanded and they're the same shape, I'm going to go ahead and sand the surfaces here, make sure that they're nice and flat as well. Especially the joint here where I glued it. But you don't want to take too much off because that will throw everything off on the thickness. So just enough just to make it even and flush on the outside. We'll go back and do finishing sanding later on. So now that piece is done. We're going to go ahead into the other one here. And we're really just trying to sand that glue joint. Okay, make that nice and flush and make sure there's no major changes in the thickness of the, okay? So now we have both fuselage sides here. All right, both fuselage sides are sitting here ready to go. Now, the next part is we're gonna have to glue the side doublers. Let me just double check through the book here. Okay, so now that I have my building surface ready to go here, I got my wax paper laid on top, and I'm using what an old sealant tile is what I utilize for my pin board. So I can pin the airframe down onto this board, and using the wax paper to protect the surface from sticking. So now that we've gotten this down, it says to go ahead and pin this piece down onto the board. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And what I'm going to utilize as a pin spot are the holes here where the wooden dowels are going to go through. And the reason for that is by doing that, I'm going to put a mark through this piece here, so that way later on it'll be very easy to find those holes to make sure that they're lined up. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom or on the other side. I want these as lined up as I can get them here, so that way I can keep an eye on them and see how they're lining up. Right here. All right. And glue the pieces of 3/16 square to the top and bottom of the fuselage sides. So, if you look here on the fuselage side, there's that line right here, and this is going to line up right on there like so, and it's going to follow that curve all the way down. And then the same thing on the top here. It says do it on the top and there. So that with here, it's going to come up along here. It's going to come down this side and all the way down the tail on both the left and the right. So we're going to go ahead and do that next. So around this curve here, I may end up doing a splice. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to cut it right in line with, get my razor saw, it'd be a little easier to do that with. I'm going to cut it in line with the bottom of the fuselage. So, okay. And then what I can do is I can turn that one over like this, which now creates that curve. Okay, so we'll glue that together. So I'm going to glue this piece on first. Grab some of my medium CA. Okay, glue that in. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and find out how much I need here. I'm going to cut it a little bit long. That piece to the side. This bend isn't too bad over on this end, so I can get that around. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put some CA along here. And what we're going to do is we're going to line it up with the inside line on here, not the outside line, because the inside line is going to be the same on both pieces. And we can sand the rest of it to meet. Don't glue your fingers to it. There we go. There's one. Now you see how that splicing this piece in gave me that nice gradual curve? And then this piece had right about here, it curves again. But this curve is also a little bit less sharp. So it goes around that curve really nicely. And then goes all the way to the end, right before you get to the there. So I do need to cut another piece and line it up on the stabilizer saddle right here. Okay, so that'll be the next piece we got to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. It's going to be exactly the same, so I'm not going to show you that twice, but that'll be exactly the same. This part's all done, and we'll go on from there. So stay tuned, guys. Okay, so that's all I have for today. We're going to let this cure. Next week, we'll be ready to start piecing the fuselage sides together. Off camera, I'm going to go ahead and get these all cut out. This is for the rudder and the elevator and the vertical and horizontal stabilizer. We'll have those cut out, ready to go. So that way all we have to do next time is piece the fuselage together, and then we can start looking at getting these all covered, painted, however we're going to cover it, whatever we're going to do with it. I haven't completely decided. And then we'll start working on the wing, on the fiberglass. And if I do fiberglass it, I'm going to fiberglass and paint the fuselage as well. There's no sense in doing one and then the other. So we'll go ahead and get started on that next time. And that's all I have. So keep building and keep flying, guys. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you want to help support my channel, go ahead and visit my Teespring store. I have t-shirts on there for sale, sweatshirts, and so on. Any proceeds go to help support the channel so I can keep bringing you content like this. So stay tuned for the next video, and look forward to seeing you next time, guys.